I'm mixing up a little bit of ochre here. I've speeded up the film a little bit, but it just gives you an idea. So I'm using yellow ochre, some pinks, using a large flat 1-inch brush and just really blocking it into the background here, really sort of cutting into the sheep. This is to create a little bit of light and it's to get that Christmassy feel. And I'm putting on some violet now and just sort of blending it in a little bit with the colours. Don't worry too much because I'm going to do another layer over this. Usually with acrylics you work sort of dark to light, but you sort of build up these layers because you'll find the canvas sort of peeks through after you've done that first layer. So I'm really sort of being careful, cutting around the sheep. A little tip for you here, where the sheep are white, obviously they're white woolly coat, sort of paint darker washes, and where their heads are darker, because I'm going to do dark faces, make it a little bit lighter. Don't worry too much at this stage, but just keep that in mind because we're going to do that later on. So I'm just blocking in here with my flat brush, and don't even worry if you go over the bodies of the sheep, because remember with acrylics you can paint over the top afterwards. You can be really loose. I'm using my finger here just to blend in those colours and to sort of soften everything. So I haven't actually painted anything on the foreground yet, so I'm just painting some shadows in the snow, and I will be putting some white paint on afterwards and it'll really bring it to life. So I'm using some of the cobalt blue, a touch of violet and a touch of the yellow ochre, and I'm putting in some grasses now with the yellow ochre and the cobalt blue, just really simple little grasses, and I'm using a really small little brush here, but anything will do just to get some little bits of detail here. Remember, even acrylic painting, less is more. I'm using the small brush here just to paint in the dark faces of the sheep, and I'm using violet and the cobalt blue with a touch of yellow ochre, but later on I use a little bit of black as well just to really give it a little bit of impact here. So I'm just sort of really got creamy paint on my brush and painting this on the dry background. So much fun to do is to paint this. I did this with my students years ago. They all loved it. It was part of their sort of Christmas card sort of ideas around that time. I'm putting a little bit of ochre, yellow ochre, on my fingertip here and a bit of violet and just blending them in. The top of the sheep is still just the canvas, the raw canvas, but here I'm just blending it in, and actually you get some nice texture because there's no underpainting here, so it's actually quite nice. You can do this as well on paper, but I would suggest prime it first. If you don't actually have any acrylic primer, you could use white matte emulsion paint and just let that dry for 24 hours, and then you can get painting, or acrylic paper is just as good. I'm painting some little just sticks for legs here. It's so much fun to do, just using black paint, and I'm just filling a little bit on the left hand side of the sheep heads where I want to just create a bit of shadow. I thought I'd just put a little bit more pink in my background. I literally paint, sort of squeeze it out straight from the tube, and I'm just blending a little bit with my 1-inch flat brush, getting a little bit more pink in there. I've gone a bit mad with the colours, but you can use whatever colours you fancy. The techniques will be the same, and I'm blending a little bit more of the yellow ochre to create a little bit more light, and between the sheep's legs as well, just really getting these colours blocked in. Rinse my brush off there to make sure there's no paint, and I'm going to blend in the violet here because violet and the yellow ochre make a lovely brown, and I don't necessarily want brown here. I just want those lovely vivid colours. When you paint a layer on top of acrylics, always make sure the underpainting is dry, otherwise you can get into an awful lot of sticky mess. So here we are, I'm just putting a little bit more yellow ochre around the top of their heads just to create that light, and then getting a little bit of violet, just blending everything just to get everything quite uniform. And I'm using a little bit more of the violet, as I said earlier, just to get the dark behind the white, their white fluffy coats, and a little bit here and there in between their legs. You know, just building up this painting, you know, with the sort of the details now, and blending in. Oh, I can't get enough of that pink, it's gorgeous. I'm just now just sort of blending in again, just really smoothing out the edges with the flat brush. I've let everything dry, and I'm using pure white titanium paint, and I'm using it on the top and just a little bit to the left there, and just blending again with my fingertips there. If you don't like blending with your fingertips, you can just use a brush to blend as well. It's no bother. I just like the effect of it and the feel of it. It's so much fun. And I'm just sort of just sort of really trying to get get that impact. And can you see how they're pulled back from the background now, because you're getting that sort of sharp, clean edge on top there, and just blending away. I'm using a small brush, but use whatever brush you find comfortable. You know, everyone's different. There's no right or wrong. And especially in acrylics, you can just sort of paint over the top if it goes wrong. So I'm just putting a little bit of white paint now, pure white paint, on the foreground to show the snow, and also just cutting into that edge there where the snow meets the background. So I've got a nice clean edge, and just blending as well as I go. Once you put all the snow on, the white paint that is, you can put a little bit more shadows now on the snow, and I'm just using the violet and the blue with a touch of white. The white paint's still wet, so it's blending really nicely, and I'm putting a little bit of shadow as well under the sheet for a bit of cast shadow. And it's just nice. It's nice to blend here. You know, I'm using really this fat 1-inch brush most of the time, and my canvas measures 12 by 10, so it's not too small for that. So I'm just using a little bit more of the black here just to sharpen up these legs, just to give those final little bits of detail, and also a little bit of yellow ochre white with a touch of purple, just to put some light on the right hand side of their faces. I've actually included in the thumbnail here for you to copy or to help you my watercolor painting as well. And why not check out that tutorial as well? It's so much fun to do some different techniques as well if you like watercolor painting. So I'm just putting a little bit more dark now on the left hand side, really sharpen up those details right at the end. That's why acrylic painting, you should never really worry. Just, you know, you can always do a little bit more, so never overwork those sort of beginning stages. Keep everything loose. I've actually got some watered down acrylics now. I'm using a large round brush, sort of very dilute white, and just spattering all over. You could use a toothbrush to do this as well. It's so much fun to do, and you can do as much as you like. You can put them in a snowstorm if you want to, but it does give that lovely Christmassy feel. I just thought I'd put a few more little grasses there before I actually spatter into the foreground there, just a little bit more detail. It got a little bit lost when I was painting the white and the shadows. So I'm just finishing off now with a lovely spatter here and there. Just really tap that brush hard, and make sure you hold it further down the handle and don't sort of move it too much in your hand. Keep it nice and firm and rigid. So someone needs to tell me to stop now. I'm going to really try and force myself to stop, or else I'll just have a white canvas again. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you'd like to see more tutorials like this, why not subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you'll get updates of my latest videos. If you have any comments or questions about this, please put them in the comments section below. I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you again for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.